Hey guys, welcome back to Media Talks TV. Happy Friday, and let's jump into this topic. Um, Everybody on the internet has seen the Julio Foolio case play out before our eyes, but you know, I got to this Tuesday. I got to look at the court case after the sentence and the particular case has been highlighted now that the sentence has been rendered, that they've been found guilty. One of the people that is sticking out in this case right now is Sean Gaffright. And what's interesting is now his reaction to the guilty verdict is just surprising because if you look at some of the previous testimony and the evidence in the background of Sean Gaffright, you realize this is one of the saddest cases that I've ever seen in my entire life, and I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna break it down for you because Sean Gaffright is a prime example of why you need to be careful who you surround yourself around. And I don't know how many times these young people got to keep hearing this until they blue in the face. But be careful who you surround yourself around because you never know whose motives or what motives people got. And Sean is a sad case because here's a young man. He came from a life of privilege. And I remember hearing the testimony for the penalty phase. And it was crazy. This young man, this guy got a chance to travel all over the world. He got a chance to go to Ireland, Cape Town, South Africa. He got to live a privileged life. He was a private school boy. And for the life of me, I don't understand it. It's something in the black community, and even I have encountered it when I was younger. And I need y'all to listen for a minute, man, and hear me. You got kids within our community that come from a secure background, a mother and a father, grow up in a decent household, hanging out with kids that are either foster kids or they're kids with no fathers in the house and just they step parent taking care of them, or they coming from a house where their parents aren't even there guiding them. I had friends like that. And I had to distance myself away from those friends because I knew if I continue being around these group of people, they were going to lead me down a pathway or put me or set me up in a situation that I didn't want to be in. And sometimes we get naive as parents about the type of friends that we have and the influences our children have around them. This didn't have to be his life, but now it's his life now. But the ultimate thing is Sean made a choice. Nobody really pushed him to do what he did. And people need to understand this. And I feel like when we were watching the live streaming of the court case Tuesday, I was like, there were certain groups of people saying, well, just because he turned his life over to God doesn't excuse or have the remorse of what he did. And I remember, and I was watching one particular thing when they were asking it, when the state was asking them a question, did you feel remorse when you shot through the vehicle, when you had that AR-15 in your hand and the AR-15 was hot? Did you have remorse then? Did you have remorse when you were celebrating with your friends in Orlando drinking a bottle of Don Julio? And I remember, and he kept saying, I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to take responsibility. But taking responsibility would mean you had remorse for what you did. But it seemed like in this young man's mind, it just didn't seem to click. And that's going to be the deciding factor of whether this man gets life or death. Because what the state was trying to prove is whether or not, okay, we found out he did do these things. He set it up. He was calculating. He followed the man, and then he tailed him. They had the tail on him, and then they shot him. And he comes from a military background. So who do you think he learned it from? How do you think he learned how to kill? You know? But my biggest thing was I was looking at the other two defendants, right? Well, of course, it was. I believe there's three defendants, three more defendants. But I was looking at their testimony, and one of the other guys, one of the other boys, they were fucking laughing. At least Sean was crying when he got the guilty verdict, but the other two motherfuckers, they were laughing. One was yawning, and the other one was laughing. They did not give two shits, but they weren't the ones that pulled the trigger. So the thing about it is, you have Sean, who's a half breed. He's light skinned, and this is the thing that I I grew up around a lot of light skinned people, and every time I always notice light skinned people always trying to front to try and prove themselves. I don't know if you recognize it, but if you've ever had light skinned friends or lighter complected friends, biracial friends, they always try to find ways to try to want to fit in with other groups of people because they always feel left out, or they always feel like they need to prove themselves, or they have something to prove in order to be treated right. And I don't know what it is. It's like when they get sheltered, and then when they come out into the real world, they feel like they always have to have this need to prove themselves to the world that they belong. It's something that's kind of becoming of blacks in a lot of ways because we still have a lot of colorism within our community. But this Sean guy, Sean Garthright, he is a tragic case of, he's kind of like the tragic mulatto. He had a need to want to fit in with the bad group of people. And, how he got caught up, that's going to be the biggest story down the line. We're never going to find out how he got caught up with this group of people that he was with, where he felt the need, he needed to kill somebody. But it's going to come out eventually. But of course, this young man, if he gets the death penalty, it would probably be the easiest thing. It would be the easiest out he ever had. But let's just say, if he does get life, which I believe in my heart of hearts he probably will because of his background. Um, he probably will be able to turn himself around. But I don't see the other two getting. I don't really see the other two getting life without parole for various reasons. Because the darker you are, the more people have in their mind of how violent you can be or how much of an animal you can look like. And what I really want to go back to is be careful. If you have a son or a daughter, be careful and be mindful of who your children hang out with. And be careful hanging out with groups of people that might not be good for your spirit and good for you, or have an overwhelming influence and a need to try and turn you into something that you're not. Biggest problem out here today because of social media is a bunch of kids want to be gangsters but don't realize that they throwing their life away for a type of life that doesn't lead to anything probable. Yeah, you'll get the money, you'll get the cars, you'll get the women. Women will throw themselves at you, but it always has a dead end. I used to be fascinated with that lifestyle, but I realized that lifestyle comes with an end date. And just like so many others who thought they were going to be on top, they ultimately ended up at the bottom with the rest of the people that thought they were going to be on top. So everything in this life has a price. This young man killed somebody. He'll have to sit in a cell for the rest of his life and go to sleep knowing that that body is on him for the rest of his life. That he executed someone. He played God. But looking at the case, I can't have an ounce of sympathy for Sean Garthright. I can't. Because if I was on that jury and I was looking at all the mitigating factors, the fact that he drove his grandmother's car all the way from Tampa to Jacksonville. It says something about him that he was in it deep. And I remember looking at the other evidence and the other testimony and other videos on Law and Order TV. Who the hell pays $300 for a fucking Uber to go from Tampa to Jacksonville? If you don't have a car, why the hell are you going from? How the hell are you taking an Uber that far? So it goes to show you these kids had jobs, they had a place to go, they had work. The girl had multiple jobs, so I don't know how the hell she got caught up in that shit and why she felt the need to want to kill this guy or drag them to it. But I want to separate that too. And you're not going to like what I'm going to say about this, but also be careful with these girls out here too, because that chick, she led those guys to that man. I feel like she should have got the more stiffer penalty. But it's something about the standard in which we punish men versus women. But it's also standards too within the law that need to be applied equally in sentencing. And there's no way, and I'm in agreement with everybody else too, there's no way in the world this girl got away with simple manslaughter when she was a co-conspirator to premeditated murder. I don't understand that at all. I don't understand Florida law, but that shit really has to change because I'm sick of the double standard where these girls go out here and murder somebody and they only get 18 to 20 years in prison. There was another case in Florida a long time ago where a girl stabbed her boyfriend in a hotel and she got off. Well, you wouldn't say she did get off, but she got a light sentence. 18 years in prison is not very heavy, not a very heavy sentence. That's not a very heavy fucking sentence. But she got it, and I'm sitting here asking myself, how the fuck are these girls who do all this shit getting light sentences? If you stab somebody, it's just straight up murder. It's not manslaughter to me. But she got a manslaughter charge. But if it was a guy that stabbed a woman multiple times, they would call that first degree murder because of the nature of the crime. But why is it that judges look at women with a different lens than they do a man? Answer that question, because it's very funny. Like I'm seeing two different standards in the media with how the girl who stabbed her ex-boyfriend is treated versus how these young men are being treated in the media and how this girl led these men to Julio or Julio Foolio and then went and said, "Hey, he's here in this hotel room." If she hadn't led them to that young man, they probably get away. They probably get away with just a simple weapons possession. But no, she's doing, I believe, 15 years, and she probably get her sentence commuted because she helped the state identify the other guys. and the rest will get life in prison or the death penalty. I still don't understand it. There's an uneven hand. I'm not debating or disputing that the young men deserve a punishment or justice. What I'm saying is, if we're going to talk about laying down the law when it comes to justice, the person who set it up should bear the heaviest sentence. And her case was separate from theirs, which is just crazy. She led him there, and then she became a material witness. She started the whole goddamn thing. And this is why I was telling you, with a lot of bitches, be careful when you have women who have multiple men ready to fight for them. Because this is where a lot of guys end up either dead or in jail, because they always like to instigate shit. Women, these younger women in this generation, they like to play multiple men against each other, and this is what leads to a lot of killings out on the street. You have to be very careful. All this damsel in distress bullshit, that has to end. Men gotta learn how to see through a pretty face and a big ass to see what type of person they are. And of course, she's going to get out of jail, and she's probably going to tell the story. And she'll probably be on fucking Trap Queens or some shit, talking about how she led three niggas to kill another nigga. They all act this way. And I'm glad a lot of men are starting to see the writing on the wall, especially with black women, because you're seeing all this femme fatale shit start to become a big part of the culture, where you have women leading men into traps, setting them up and getting them killed, like Willie Lump Lump. All this bullshit. And it's been a part of it. Has been a part of our culture for the longest time, but nobody wants to talk about it. The culture, we as black folks don't want to talk about it, and the media doesn't want to talk about it. There have been men that have been led to get robbed and killed, and women crying, acting like they're the fucking victims the whole time. But I digress. That's for another video, which I'm going to do. But the main thing that I want my listeners to take away from this is to make sure you're careful who you surround yourself with, and make sure you're careful who you hang out with. I've had to cut a lot of people out of my life that I knew were fucking trouble, because I didn't want to get caught up in whatever the hell they were doing. And every time I distanced myself from those people, they would get mad. They would get pissed off because they knew they couldn't fucking control me. And if I seen you doing something sneaky or underhanded, I would just quietly disappear. And that's what a lot of y'all gonna have to start doing with y'all homeboys. Don't matter how long you knew them. Don't matter how y'all grew up. When a motherfucker changes, it's they're not that person anymore. They're a different person. A lot of y'all, you get nostalgia, and y'all sit up here Some of you sit up here and you think, well, that's my homeboy, that's my nigga. We came up together. We've been cool. We've been down since elementary school. Da da da. Da. And then y'all grow up, and I'm like, that's not the same nigga, no more. He around a whole different group of people. He another different person. And sometimes you have to see it for what it is. Just because y'all connected by the past don't mean shit. You grew up. They grew up. Y'all don't play on the same fucking playground no more. He's a grown ass man now. You're a grown ass man now. What's done is done. Certain things and principles you just gonna have to understand. They're not the same people they were anymore. Then when you get caught up in some shit and they say, here, hold this, then they set you up, then they have you carrying a murder weapon, and then you go to jail and you do the bid that he was going to end up doing. And a lot of y'all niggas do that. Y'all crash out for y'all homeboys. I'm not blindly loyal to anyone that's going to put me in a position to lose my freedom and my principles. Just because you had my friendship doesn't mean that I need your friendship. If I see something that I don't like, I ain't gonna hang around it. Simple as that. And I think this Sean Garthright didn't understand that, and that's why he ended up in the gang and he ended up doing stupid shit. But we're gonna find out later down the line when he's sitting in that jail cell and he's talking about his life and he's telling people as a deterrent, don't end up like me, because I gave up my whole life. But then again, when you look at the evidence and what's stacked against him, you use your grandmother's car in the commission of a crime. I don't think the state really answered the proper questions or gave him the proper questions. I would have said, when you were driving that car up to Tampa, were you thinking? When you were driving that car from Tampa to Jacksonville, were you having remorseful thoughts? Were you saying to yourself, I shouldn't be doing this? This is not me. Were you thinking about that during the time when you were on that highway and you were driving that fucking car all the way to Jacksonville? Were you thinking then? Or did it come after the fact you shot into the car? Or did it come after the fact you was in a nightclub celebrating with Don Julio? Now remember the response that he said. He said, I don't remember the events of that time. I try to put it out of my mind. Try to put it out of your mind. You act like it never happened, even though you did it. That's unconscionable. That's where I say, yeah, you deserve the death penalty. And he does deserve the death penalty. If I was on that jury and I was sitting, and I was saying, look, you had a nice life. You had a life that I wish that I had. I wish I could travel all over the world. I wish I had a military brat mom, a mom that was in the military. I wish I had that. I wish I lived in a house with a fucking garage. I wish I had those mentors that you had. Cause see, anybody that's poor would have traded the life that they had for his. And this is one of the things that's unconscionable. You had the life everybody wish the poor niggas wish they had. You had that life. That's why all of them circled around you like a fucking vulture. Because you had something that they wanted. And this is why you got to tell the difference between who your real friends are and who aren't. Some of these motherfuckers, they circle around you like a vulture because they know you got something good that they want and they want you to lose it. And that's how most niggas are. When you got it good and when you have it all, they wanna be around you because they know they could get some money out of you. They could get anything they want because you got it. I remember when I was younger, you know, all of us, kids nowadays they don't understand that some people ain't your friend. And I used to be the type of person, I used to help a lot of people out. I used to like helping other people out. But then I knew some people, I had to find out the hard way when I was younger, when I was little, that most people have underhanded intentions. Most kids have underhanded intentions. They want what you want because they ain't got it. It's like the kid with the new pair of Nikes, or it's kind of like the kid with the bike, and they say, "Oh, can I ride your bike?" And I'm just gonna take it for a spin and then don't come back with your fucking bike. Even when your parents told you, I told you not to let none of the kids around the neighborhood ride your bike. Now you ain't got no bike. And see, that's the thing about kids nowadays. They're fucking vultures. Black kids in these neighborhoods, I learned when I was coming up, they're fucking vultures. I used to share my toys with them. I used to share. I remember I had this. I remember I had a friend named David. Used to live up my block, and I remember when I used to share my baseball cards with him. When I used to share my bike with him, because I consider him my friend. And when I let him borrow my stuff, and when I let him, borrow my cars and everything, he started punching me in the mouth. And I used to sit there and not do nothing. My father had to pull me aside, and he said, "Don't let him treat you like that." And then I remember he looked at me and he was waiting for me to defend myself. David punched me a second time. I punched his ass back and he went home crying back to his mama. Punched him in his fucking mouth. Cause see, he thought he was gonna punk me on the block. But I had to learn, don't ever let nobody punk you. And a lot of black kids, when we grew up, we let niggas test us and we let niggas punk us on our own in our own neighborhood, our own fucking neighborhood. And then we end up having to go down the road where we had to prove ourselves to everybody else how hard we are and how gangster we are at the end of the day. And ultimately, it's just nothing but a test to get you to go to the penitentiary where you gotta get tried even more when you in that cell. And that's what this young man is about to go through. He gonna get tested. They gonna take his fucking food. They gonna take his fucking commissary. They gonna punk his ass every which way. I'd rather have the death penalty than live up in there. And I'd give him the death penalty just to spare him that bullshit. I wouldn't have did shit. I wouldn't have tried to plead or do anything. I would have just said, you know what? If they gonna kill me, they gonna give me the death penalty, lethal injection. Let them give me the lethal injection. At least I'll be away from this horrible shit. Death is easy. Being locked down 24/7, where niggas will try you, and the older you get, the weaker you get too. So then the younger inmates will start punking on the older inmates, and they don't talk about what goes on in them jails. Them older inmates, some of them, some of them get fucked up. Younger inmates, he said he wanted to be a mentor to other inmates so they don't go down. I'm like, how you know they gonna respect you? That's the question. They ain't gonna respect you. You light skinned. You half white. You think they gonna respect you? No, they not. They gonna punk you and take your commissary. They gonna take your ramen noodles. Yeah. They gonna take your ramen noodles and take your Doritos and shit and make a taco sandwich and shit. Whatever the fuck they do. Whatever the fuck they do in them jails. I don't, ugh. And you know what? I started realizing I don't like ramen noodles no more. Now that I think about it, ramen noodles it used to be in college. It used to be a college thing. Now is for some odd reason I don't eat it because I think it's a jail thing now. That's crazy. But you know, if I was on that jury to conclude, he'd be getting the death penalty. I wouldn't care about his background. He went up there with his grandmother's car, drove it up there, put mileage on the fucking car, took the car back, wiped it down, and act like he didn't commit a crime in it. That's unconscionable. You can't do that and then call yourself a Christian or a good guy after that shit. I can't like if I was in I've been in a jury room before and I've said plenty of times I find somebody guilty because, you know, if if it isn't a deterrent out on the street, then it isn't a deterrent in a jail. Sometimes you gotta look at the heart of an individual. You can't look at his background. You gotta look at the what's going on in this person's heart to make him want to do that. I feel like the testimony and all them character witnesses would just pale in comparison to what the hell he did. Mhm. And even his mama, and this the messed up thing. His mama tried to defend him, and then almost tried to bring up the facts of the case. In which, once you're in the penalty phase, you can't bring up those facts of the case. They already found him guilty. The evidence was there, and he had multiple opportunities not to do it. Nobody forced him into this shit. He made the conscious decision to take his ass from Tampa to Jacksonville to kill this person. You hunted this person down. That's premeditated. There is no conscience for somebody to do something so cold and calculated like that. And they shouldn't be able to walk amongst anyone because their influence is too deep now. And they could cause a lot of influence in prison in the worst way. That's why I didn't understand why he was bringing up. I've been reading the Bible. Isn't that a common defense too? I've been bringing up the Bible. I've been reading the Bible. Well, good for you. But even Cain had to walk the desert for the rest of his life after he killed Abel. And that's the thing he doesn't see. It's a heavy burden that he's carrying, but it's a burden that he'll have to live with the rest of his life. It's been another Media Talks TV. I'm Tony J. Make sure you hit the like, share, and subscribe. Got some more videos coming your way. I'm out. Peace.